Good morning.
Good morning.
On behalf of my mother, Dolores, my wife, Carrie, our son, Jack, we are overwhelmed by your words and your love and your support. We understand the effort that so many of you made to come to the First Amendment Center yesterday, and we know that you've come from near and far in the heat of the summer to celebrate my father today. From the bottom of our heart, we thank you. It is appropriate that we are here in this church, the Cathedral of the Incarnation. My grandparents were married here. This is where my father was baptized, where my parents were married, where I was baptized. From birth to death, this church has hosted the seminal moments of the Seigenthaler family for decades. Dad attended elementary school right behind this sanctuary. And when he was here in school, his own father, who was a roofer, worked on repairing this roof. My father remembered playing on the playground outside and looking up and rattling the downspout for his father to toss down pennies and nickels for lunch money. Dad's sister Joan told me the other day, she said, "We were always so proud of Daddy up there on the roof." My grandfather died leaving a young family, and my father helped support his 7 brothers and sisters with his first job at the Tennessean. He worked late and he would come back home at midnight or after to his mother and younger siblings, and Aunt Joan remembers bonding as a family in the wee hours of the morning as my dad talked around the kitchen table about what would be in the newspaper the next day when the sun rose. But I did not come here to canonize my father or to beatify him. It is important to share his earthiness, his fallibility, the characteristics that help define him as the controversial and charismatic man that I knew. For instance, he was a terrible driver. It was in part because he really wasn't always a patient guy. Dad saw traffic signs not as orders to obey, but as mere suggestions. It's a miracle I survived my childhood because of even a short ride could be terrifying. He used to go up on the sidewalks. He thought they were his own personal passing lanes. His cars were always dinged and scraped and dented. If he'd known how to text, we'd probably been in this church sooner altogether. He was highly competitive. A month ago, he played golf, and he called me on the phone and he said, "I shot my age." And I say, "Who'd you play with?" And he said, "Zeitlin and Sutherland. I beat their ass." We drove his dinged black car here today. His clubs are in the trunk. He died an elderly man. He never had an elderly mind. And what I describe here are character traits. Dad was perpetually late, always late. My mom set the clock 20 minutes ahead of time at home, but he viewed the hands of time, again, as a mere suggestion. He was late to meetings, late to dinners, late to lunches, speeches, live interviews, airplanes. More than once, he had to talk his way onto a plane that had already closed the door. And when he got to where he was going, sometimes Dad had to call his secretary and ask why he was there. Perhaps it was because he was often lost in his books. He always carried 2 or 3 books with him, preparing for A Word on Words, the program about books that he hosted for 40 years on Nashville Public Television. He did it as a volunteer. He was never paid a dime. And sometimes when the station couldn't afford to buy books, Dad bought them. With his books, he carried multiple pens because he liked to write in the margins of the book. You always knew he'd he'd been in the house and where he'd been in the house because he left ink stains from south to north, from Tennessee to Connecticut. We would find ink stains on shirts and sheets and sofas and chairs. Once we found an ink stain on my dog. Throughout his wonderful life of literature, Dad's favorite poem remained Miracles by Walt Whitman, which reads in part, "To me, every hour of light and dark is a miracle. Every cubic inch of space is a miracle. Every square yard of surface of the earth is spread with the same." Miracles, his favorite poem, reflects Dad's optimism, hope, and his passion for life. He shared it with us. He shared it with me. That attitude anchored his own writing for important family occasions, including a letter he wrote to me on my 50th birthday, which read in part, "Who knows how much life is left? Since that day, 50 years ago, this day, I have felt your every breath was mine, and mine yours. We fear not the future, you and I. When my breath is gone, it will still be yours. Tomorrow is ours, because the past and the present has been and is. With all these incredible years can mean, I love you." We love you, Dad.
So very nice, John.
I sure wish I could find out about incense and water. It looks like